Hey David, how you doing? Gonna
Not
do a
too
little
bad.
quick.
How are you?
We're gonna do a quick little introductory for everybody here. Today's it happens to be the 27th, and before I get into you, David, I just want to say a special happy birthday to my sister. She's a Academy staff. She does all the filming for our showcase program, and it just so happened to be the day I get the chance to talk to you happened to be her birthday, so it'll be another day to remember. So I want to say a special shout out, happy birthday to my sister Kayla Parent. All right. I know the Academy's all saying special happy birthday to her right now. And before, without delay, I want to introduce David Edgar. He's been a lot of people know who he is naturally. He's a Hamilton Forge player. Okay. And before he was with the Hamilton Forges, he's had a very, very unique story that most Canadians really can't say. And I'm going to just start to give a little bit of a background and update or to where we are right now today. Um, about 2007, I think was the year I got to know who David Edgar was. As part of a tradition in Canada, we watched, at first we watched Soccer Saturday through a guy named Graham Leggett. I heard, I know David for sure watched him when he was growing up in Canada as well. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
David Leggett passed away in 2015, but he was the guy in Canada that we all looked to get your soccer knowledge. Back then, we didn't have satellite dishes and TV screens. You had to wait till Saturday to get all the footage from over Europe, and that was how we started to watch that. So it became a thing where we got a little bit more advanced in the 2000s. We started to see Sportsnet, and at one point in time, Sportsnet was airing 3 and 4 games a day, and we loved them for it. And we had several Canadians that had been into the EPL before. One of them was high profile Craig Forrest. I mean, he was a goalkeeper, but it's very few that we knew that went over there. Um, and one day I'm watching EPL as I do on regularly on a Saturday, and I was watching Newcastle United play against Manchester United. It was in 2007 at some point, and I think Manchester United was in the beginning of one of their three-peats. I think they started their first season of a three-peat, but either way, there's a lot of difficulty along the way. And I looked up one day on the screen and a screamer of a goal. A goal. The ball twisted, it went to the back of the net. It was just a screamer, and then Alex Ferguson had that look on his face of disgust and seconds afterwards, the commentator says, David Edgar out of Kitchener, Ontario. And I froze. My young son was watching. I said, what? Kitchener, Ontario? I said, son, this kid comes from just 45 minutes away down the road. And that was how I got to know you. And I just wanted to know if you could maybe give, my members and everybody watching right now a little bit of a build up to how did you get to the point of where you're putting a dent for ever how temporary it was in Alex Ferguson's plans.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, happy birthday to your sister. And thank you guys for having me. Really excited to come and chat. But I think that's the memory that most people kind of have of me, especially as when I first kind of came onto the scene in terms of a professional. But getting there, yeah, I was born and raised in Kitchener, Ontario, to two English parents who my dad played for Newcastle actually, and he played with Pele actually in New York Cosmos. So my dad had a half decent career, but he was a goalkeeper, so we didn't really have much in common in that sense. But yeah, so I'd always been a big Newcastle fan, and from a young kid wanted to play for them. That's all I wanted to do was play for Newcastle United. I had the bed sheets, the wallpaper. I think I had the lampshade as well. But yeah, and so I was lucky enough to go over on a couple sort of summer trips here and there. I stayed in the northeast of England, trained with different teams, but for me, it was just that draw of being able to train at Newcastle and pull on the jersey. And I was lucky enough to be invited back, and made the decision that I would go through. I would try, and I would live with my mom's mom, my nanny, she's called. So I lived with her. I got 2 buses and a train to training, and I worked my way up through the academy there, which was no easy feat as a Canadian or anyone. I was lucky enough. I captained the reserves, went through my time in the reserves. I went up the ladder, and when my time came, my opportunity came, I was ready. And I mean, technically, it wasn't my debut that game. I played the week before on Boxing Day. I made my my Premier League debut. But everyone remembers, and I remember it because it was at for me the real theater of dreams, St. James's Park.
Yeah, that was awesome, man. So, as you see the smile comes to my face there because I said, again, it was a real sincere moment. And not all the time do you really get a moment that you can remember, but that's one that, I definitely remember. And again, my son remembers, and again, most people in Canada should remember. On that topic now, just wanted to really find out from you. A lot of my members would really want to know, what was the transition like for you? What age did you go over there? What was the transition like being a Canadian, raised? I know you had parents who are from the United Kingdom, so you'd had a
Yeah.
little bit of what it was like to be there. But what was the transition like for you as a player? And did you have any struggles really, or any times you really wanted to come back home, or what was it like?
Yeah, I get asked this question a lot, especially with kids of my own. I don't think I would let them go at such a young, tender age as I went to, but I left at 14. And if I'm looking back now, I probably could have went sooner. I was ready. I knew the culture. I lived with my grandmother and whatnot, but it's still, you're away from home. But you know what, when I look back, I took it in my stride, and it was probably harder for me when I got to that older age, 17, 18, 19, when I was starting to make closer friendships in Canada, and then having to leave and go away for a year. So it was tough, but I was very single-minded in my goal of playing at top level, and that was from a young age, from probably some of the same age as some of the kids on the call. I was single-minded that that's what I wanted to do, and nothing was going to get in my way. So yeah, there was times that were tough, and there was, I had to figure out how to get a bus and trains and walk, and and I was away from my mom and dad and my sister, but you have to make sacrifices.
Right, right. So that's awesome, man. And obviously the sacrifices clearly paid off. You ended up, scoring not just against Manchester United. You also scored a nice header against Liverpool. And
Mm.
you think you had some, some other stints in the United Kingdom as well. You think you played with Burnley and Birmingham City as well, and several
Mm.
other top flight teams. When you play at a big club like Newcastle, it must be easier for you to get another job if something happens with Newcastle, right? So, figure that would be an advantage. So you ended up playing with several teams, correct or no?
Yeah, no, I went on after Newcastle. I didn't want to leave Newcastle. It was a decision where we couldn't come to an agreement, and I was being offered Premier League football at Burnley, who had just been promoted to the Premier League. Um, so yeah, I haven't talked about that too much in my career. Everyone seems to think I chose to leave, but it was, well, I did choose to leave. It was just, I would have liked to stay. But
Right.
yeah, it was a blessing in disguise. Going to Burnley, I had probably one of the highlights of my career, if not the highlight of my career, in winning promotion to the Premier League with a group of men that I'll be in touch with for the rest of my life because of what we went through that season. And people talk about that in winning years, but it is true. So yeah, that's probably one of the highlights of my career. And I played for some big clubs in England. Swansea, Huddersfield, Birmingham, Burnley, Sheffield United, all big clubs. So I'm really proud of my career I've had, and then to come back and be involved and win a championship for Hamilton was made it even more special.
Wow. And just on that note there, I just wanted to get you to ask a lot of my members and, a lot of my players specifically, they're going to want to know, what do you think about, right now? Canadians have had, such a hard time finding professional jobs. Every time we're going to go get a job, we're knocking on somebody else's door for a job over there. And, finally we get the CPL to come together. And you have a lot of really, really young, talented players in the country, and there just hasn't been enough jobs for them in the past. And some of them have been in League One, semi-pro, and in whether Quebec or in Ontario. But what would your advice be to a player that's really aspiring to get? Do you think he still should advance and or try to not advance, try to expand and go outside of the country, or do you think he should be staying and trusting a League One system? Like, are the CPL teams really going to be connected with these players here, or do you think that these players should be looking abroad? What do you think?
Well, I think the CPL is doing a fantastic job, and I think the CSA as a whole, in terms of having that pathway from League One onwards. We've had players from Sigma at Hamilton who have done fantastic for us. So you can see that working. Again, I'm getting used to and I'm new to all the Canadian side of it because I was gone for so long. So it is, but seeing the synergy, it is there, and that's what they want. But to have a Canadian Premier League a domestic league, a professional league that these kids can aspire to play for. You know, it's nice walking around and driving away from the stadium and seeing 10, 11-year-old kids in Hamilton Forge jerseys, you know, instead of a Liverpool or Man United jersey. So it gives them something to aspire to. And you know what, I want to play at Tim Hortons Field when I'm older, that type of thing. So it's a great pathway. And then and on the other hand, you see people like Tristan Borges, who had a fantastic season and was able to do that, who did have the opportunity to go and was abroad before, but then took the chance to come back here and rebuild. So it's a fantastic stepping stone for young players who do have that. And the CPL knows that we want to produce players to play at the top level because that only makes our national team better. And that, to me, is the main goal is making our national team successful.
Right. So, yeah, that's a very good answer. And again, I mean, I've been encouraging a lot of my players in the academy, you know, not to look to, as much as you did play for those big clubs in the United Kingdom and in Europe, you still have a very serious pride. You put the Forges on the same level as those clubs, and I've been encouraging my kids to look and do the same thing.
Yeah. I did it because I had to. We did it in my era. We did it because it's all we had. There was nothing else. There was no plan B. So it was go abroad or you go to school and you figure it out. So there was one option for me, and that was to get myself away. I would have made it some way. I would have tried, and I think a lot of the struggles the Canadian players have had aren't very well documented in terms of what they've done around the world. But it's I'm a big advocate for Canadian talent. I think we've got an absolute abundance of talent here, and now that we have the outlet, I think it's only going to grow.
Right. So it sounds like you're definitely saying, you know, Canadian kids should look to domestically to make their mark, right?
Yeah, I think domestically. I mean, challenge yourself to play for the top. If you want to play for Barcelona, why not? Reach for the highest goals imaginable. I'm a big advocate for that as well. But I think having that league here only builds, and knowing that kids can aspire to be something, whether that's a stepping stone to go play for your Barcelona, your Real Madrid. Look at Alphonso Davies.
Exactly. Well said. Proved himself here, and then now look where he is.
Yeah,
that brings me right to my next question, which is pretty much about nationalism and different stuff there. You know, I mean, you seem like you very much embrace Canada, and I mean, we appreciate that. You know, I mean, you know, you very easily could have tried to say, you know, hey, I'm from the United Kingdom, but you know, you really keep your roots here, and I really appreciate that. What was your experience like with the national team? I understand, you know, you played with the Canada U20s, you know, in at home on home soil. Not many Canadians can say they did that. But what's your overall experience with that experience and your time with the senior national team? You've been capped about 34 times. You know, have at least 6 national goals for the senior level to your name. So, what was your time like with the national team? What would you say?
I loved every minute of it. I was thinking the other day. I started my journey with the national team at 15 years old. So we're looking at that's almost I turned 33. Yeah, that's 18 years of service to the national team, and loved every minute of it. Loved every minute of it. It was a goal of mine to play for the national team at every level. I got to play in. Sorry, I was involved. I think it's an actual record still. I was involved in 3 under-20 World Cups. So to have that, and then to have the culmination of playing at home in the under-20 World Cup was being able to captain your country. The logical next step after that, was to achieve playing for the men's team, and it was difficult. It was a difficult time then because it was such a talented squad, and Stephen Hart gave me my opportunity, and it was great to see him as the manager of Halifax. So love running into him, and I think we underachieved in not qualifying, at least for the Hex. In our, obviously we know about the Honduras game, which is, please don't ask about that, but I think we can, if we're being honest, as a group, we underachieved at that time.
Right. And I looked at some of the results today, and again, I know a lot about the Canadian national team, where it's coming from. I had a tough loss to Chile. You know, and you had another loss to Congo, and I think you ended up losing it well to Austria. So really tough competition, but you know, at the end of the day, I think that was a little bit of a stepping stone. I think the last time they had, I think the U17s actually did a little bit better last time. I can't tell you what the results are, but it's a lot of the times with the national team, it takes some time, and again, I think a product of the country is what we need. And I definitely agree with you in terms of the CPL being the focus. Once we can get that focus there, we could possibly get more talents that are, easier for the national team to select better players, right? So that's a big part of it. Talking about the league again, I mentioned a bonus question here. I have a question specifically from one of my coaches. He wanted to know from you if you think that the CPL right now, a lot of people talk about the salaries. It might not really be where they are, but in order to keep Canadians who are like really talented, in this country, you got a guy like Alphonso Davies now, and he's playing over there in Germany, which is amazing for him. But I mean, is there going to come a point in time where we, do you think the CPL gets to be a product in the market where we actually try to, make this market over here, higher salaries and stuff to keep those players from leaving this country to keep them in Canada?
Oh yeah, I think so. I think the league is only going to grow with us being one of the hosts of 2026. The league wants to continue to grow to that and expand, and with that produce and give opportunities to more and more Canadians. But while staying a predominantly Canadian league, where you're giving up it's not just saying you're giving opportunities, you are giving opportunities to young Canadians to play professionally on their own doorstep. So you're not looking to bring in foreigners to make big money to play for your team. You've got a kid from Hamilton, from Chantilly FC, So that, I think that's the main thing of what they're looking to do. And I think it's only going to grow. And to be a part of it the first year, I think that was a major draw for me coming back over, and then to cap it with Forever First was even better.
Right. Awesome. So I'm going to have one more question for you. This is really a footballer's question. I think when you scored your goal, when you were with Newcastle, you're a midfielder, correct? In UK,
no, I played at the back. I played as a defender. Yeah.
Oh, you were a defender at that time as well? Okay, pardon me.
Yeah.
So, you had mostly defensive duties for your whole career. Did you ever any other time play any other position or?
Yeah, I did. Sometimes you were a bit of a jack of all trades. Sometimes I think deep down I was classified myself as a midfielder, but whether I was, whether I was quick enough, that remains to be seen. But I played midfield. I think what happens in the professional game as a center back, you tend to make your debut and be blooded into the team more at fullback. You're less likely to be exposed to get it's more about getting the environment around you and being surrounded by older professionals to help you. So I played left back, right back, and it's a good education to learn. I think if I was younger again, I would probably try to play more and more positions.
Right. Okay. So that was interesting because I remembered you being a midfielder. I could have been wrong. I mean, but a lot of the times what I was saying is that some of the players that play a little longer, they always seem to end up at that center back position, right? And I was just going to ask, is it because you're slower? Because sometimes the center back needs a lot of speed, but is it really, or is it because you have so much more wisdom, so much more knowledge about playing the game that you get forced into those positions and are trusted at the back? I was just wondering what you thought about that.
Well, yeah. I mean, you don't know if I'm slow because if I'm 2 yards faster than you upstairs, then I don't have to get myself into a foot race, and that's what I've done most of my career. Half the battle of being a good defender is, I remember Jonathan Woodgate when we were at Newcastle used to come off the field, no grass stains, anything. He would just break things up. So you don't have to slide tackle. I think if you're slide tackling, you're at your last resort. So just being proactive instead of reactive as a defender, I think especially center back you get better with age for sure and maturity. And I think that's the why at that age, as you get older, you can play more in that center back role or that deeper midfield role.
Coach starts to trust you a lot more. There's less mistakes going to be made.
There you go.
So okay, that's been awesome, man. I'm gonna open up to the guys' questions. Now that I've asked a lot of questions, they're definitely gonna be anxious to ask you some questions. So I'm gonna give you that time. And again, thanks again for spending this time with Chantilly. It's been great to get to talk to you and get to know you.
No problem.
Hope to see you at a Forges game. We do attend, so hopefully bump into you at some point in time. We're gonna open up the floor for you right now, though, and let these guys get at you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool.
All right. Thank you, guys. Okay. So Thank you guys for all the questions. Thank you, David and Shabazz. So I'm going to go through it. The very first question I do have here for you, David, is how did you become interested in soccer?
Whoa. I think that was just always going to happen in my life. It was I came from one of those families. My dad obviously was a professional. I was just around soccer my entire life. I was given a ball. I think I had Newcastle baby onesies on, sent over from England. So it was just always going to be a part of my life. And then obviously when I grew to actually know how much I did love it, I think it's not just a part of my life. Soccer has turned out to be my entire life.
At a young age, when you did, what did you find was the biggest difference coming from Canada to the UK?
The milk. I used to love my cereal. I had a terrible diet when I was a kid and eat 5-6 bowls of cereal a day. And then I got to England, I didn't like the milk, so I had to start eating and put some weight on. But no, I think it was more so. I had to grow up real fast. I knew the area, but when I had gone to visit England, I'd been with my mom and dad. I was a kid. I was still a kid when I moved, but you quickly grow up. I had to get the bus, 2 buses and a train, three nights a week across the river to training. So you grow up really quick, and you become very aware of things around you. So it was more of a lesson in growing up and maturity.
What's your training schedule like outside of Forge?
In the off season, or in terms of what we're going through right now?
It must be going through right now, I would say.
Well, you know what? I hope the people at Forge are watching, because this is the fittest I've ever been. We've worked extremely hard in terms of the coaches and the coaching staff have put together a fantastic program. We're getting together, I'm sure, as all you guys are on your Zoom, but we're doing our work, and we have the luxury of being tracked with our GPS and our heart rate monitor. So there really is no hiding place, and there shouldn't be, because everyone's chomping at the bit to get back to training. So there's no time we want to get back, and we don't have time to start again. Let's get back into match fitness. So I've been working pretty hard.
Yeah, for sure. How did you feel when you scored your first goal professionally?
Well, that was like nothing I've ever felt. So, it's hard to put into words. It's something I dreamed of going to bed with my Newcastle wallpaper, to be able to score there. I mean, to be against Manchester United on my home debut with my dad in the crowd, and that's where I'm actually running to, if you see, because I want to take it back and do all the celebration and run and do all the FIFA or whatever, but I ran because I knew my dad was there, and it was a special moment. So it's hard to put into words, but again, it was just the beginning, but nobody can ever take that away from me.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. How can players like you who have played top flight elsewhere use that experience to grow the CPL?
Fantastic question. By showing these, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't frustrated at times last year when I got to Hamilton, but that was because these players have never played or been in a professional environment. So I was just having to guide them and say, no, that's not how you do it. If you want the best out of yourself, here, here, and here. Some players took it on board, some players didn't, but it was I was just there to help and guide and give a little bit of advice, really.
Thank you. How old were you when you started playing soccer?
I'd probably say 3 or 4. I remember making the rep team, the under 10 team, when I was 6, and that was, I remember that's a bit early, and then that was football for me. That it took over after that.
How hard is it to make the national team?
Yeah, it's difficult. It was difficult when I was starting that process and had a dream of playing the men's team, but it's getting even harder now. I mean, if you're a wide player, a winger, or an aspiring midfielder, getting into the national team in Canada is going to be difficult for the next 5-6 years, because we have an abundance of talent going forward, attacking. So whereas sort of in my era, we didn't let goals in, but we couldn't score them. Now we're scoring goals. It's so exciting to watch for the national team, and it's even more exciting. So I think it is difficult, but position yourself and listen. If you're playing at a top level or as high level professionally as you possibly can, then the national team will be aware of it.
What are you doing to stay fit during this quarantine?
Yeah, hundreds of miles around the streets, and basement workouts. We just adapt. You know what? It took me back to I was around my mom's area, and that's where I used to run when I was 13, 14 years old. I got the ball and I kicked it against the school wall, and it brought back a lot of memories of kind of doing what I had to do to give myself the best opportunity to be a professional. So found that drive there and smash the balls against the wall and do an extra run. So it's been fun, but we're ready to get back to training now. But there's bigger things going on in the world than getting back to the field, and it's just more important that everyone's safe.
For sure. And we got the nice weather finally coming into upon us.
Yeah.
So who was your hardest player to defend?
You know, it's a tough question. It's a tough question because, I mean, the easy answer is Cristiano Ronaldo. But I've got to give myself a bit of credit, because that game, after about half an hour, there was a 50-50 challenge on the touchline, and I went straight through him, and him and Ryan Giggs switched wings. So it wasn't much easier against Giggsy, but at least Ronaldo didn't really want to try it anymore with me. So I was pretty proud of that. But I played against Nicholas Anelka, was a very tough game, and when I played center back, I played against Didier Drogba, and he was just a different level.
Wow. All right. Thank you for that. Do you have any tips on being proactive as a defender, but also not putting yourself in a vulnerable position?
Communication. It's as simple as that. You can talk yourself through a good game. You can't put yourself in a vulnerable position if you don't allow it by bringing defenders with you and staying compact and not having those gaps. And I think as a center back, you see everything. You see the field, and if you've got football is just a game of partnerships, and you've got your partners all around the field. And if you're staying together in your little groups, but how do you do that? And especially as a center back, you have to be a leader. You have to be vocal, and you have to be organizing. And you can, trust me, you can have a half decent career out of just talking.
Yeah. Awesome. As a center back, do you think it's most important to go straight to the ball or drop back?
I'd have to get in the context of the game, but well, it all depends. It depends the flight of the ball. It depends who's around you. It depends how fast is the pass to the player receiving the ball that you're closing down. It's a variable, but if I like to play in teams that are high pressing, high tempo. So I would say attacking the game.
Okay. Are you looking forward to playing for the national team possibly by 2026?
Might have to get wheeled out there, but no. Listen. I've never ruled myself into playing for the national team. It makes me so proud every time I got to do that, and I had a goal in my head of how many caps I would like, and I'd still like to do that. So it's a proud moment, and who knows what happens after this, but it's just about really the success of the national team, and that's what I truly do care about.
What was your favorite soccer field that you've ever played at?
Growing up or stadium?
Maybe both if you can, or maybe just a stadium.
Okay, maybe I'll have to get. Maybe these kids have played here, but Bud Park in Kitchener. That was my field growing up. I used to run the Bud Park. Sadly, it's getting taken down. I believe soon. But I proposed to my wife at Bud Park. It's a pretty soccer family. But St. James's Park. To me, playing there, but that walking out the tunnel at Old Trafford it's something that I don't care who you are, you get shivers on the back of your neck, because just seeing it, knowing the history, it was just something special. So to be able to do that in my career was pretty special.
Okay. Do you have any? What's your favorite sport outside of soccer?
Golf. I think a lot of soccer players, especially over in England, that would be their number 2 sport. But it's tough with the regime. I think it's a good way to wind down as well. It depends how serious you take it, but it's a good way to wind down and sort of switch off. But it's impossible to actually fully switch off from the game.
Not only do we have the same name, we have the same second sport. So that's awesome. That's cool.
There you go. We'll have to get out sometime.
Have you ever experienced anxiety while playing soccer?
No, I haven't. So to me, one of the easiest places in the world is the field, is being on the field. It's the place that nothing else going on in my life. My daughter's not listening to me, things like that. None of that matters when you're on that field. But that's not just game time. That's training. It's a love. It's a real love. I love the game just as much as I did when I was 6 years old. So as I said, it is my life.
Okay. Do you sorry, there's a couple of questions are popping at the same time.
No worries.
Who's the best teammate you've ever played with?
Wow,
that's a hard one. You don't want to get in trouble.
That's a hard. Yeah, no, I've had to listen. They say athletes are like ships passing in the night. You play with so many different teammates. You'll have a couple when you finish your career that are really good friends, and I have that. A couple Scottish guys who were at my wedding. I was at their wedding, so it's I've played with some really good guys, and I've had some pretty famous teammates as well when they think about the career they've gone on to have. So it's I played with Michael Owen, who was a pretty cool teammate to have. Alan Shearer. So it's heroes of mine growing up. I mean, I remember watching '98 World Cup when Michael Owen scored. So to be able to sit in the same dressing room as him was pretty special.
When you did you do you have any regrets? Sorry, do you have any regrets?
I do decisions I've made in my career, but it's not necessarily regrets. I try to live without regrets. I was fortunate enough to have the best job in the world. I still do. So there really is nothing to complain about. Whether I could have been advised a little bit better through certain decisions throughout my career, possibly, but you've got to take that accountability, and it was only my career to make those decisions. So, you never take regrets, but sometimes you think, what if? But I loved every minute of it.
Did you have a situation in your young age, growing up, regarding listening to the coach? Did you ever felt that you ever knew more in a certain situation? Did you not accept sometimes maybe a coach not listening to you? What would you be, were you in that situation? What did you do? What would be your advice to the kids listening now?
I remember once I was sent for laps. That's about it. And that would just be strictly for talking when the coach is talking. I listened. I did listen because I truly believe that it was an opportunity each time to get better. And if you miss something the coach is going to say that might make you get better, then it's a session wasted. And I think you're there to get better. And I think you can get better. And that's all aspects of life. Just listening. You can learn a lot by just listening.
Nutrition is a very big part of being a soccer player. What would be your advice on some feedback on having my son, I guess this must be a parent, being currently healthy as a soccer player?
I think as long as you're getting the right balance of, it depends age and everything, right? You can go into a lot of detail over this, or you look at your carb loading. Are you carb loading leading up to games, and then protein for recovery? I think protein's key after well, throughout the day, but especially after games and training sessions. And then are you loading carbs wise? Lots of water. It's pretty simple. There's nothing changes. I think I've played in different countries and not much changes throughout an athlete's diet throughout the world in most sports. So I think it's fairly easy. It's just hard.
Exactly. Okay. All right, guys, we're gonna go through 2 more questions here. Okay. Sorry if I didn't get a chance to get back to you. Do you currently like the new Forge uniforms?
Oh, it's listen, I didn't really get it. It was a bit of a strange time. So when we saw them, it was, I feel like we were in preseason, and then I completely forgot about it until the other day because there's been so much more going on in the world. And I looked at them and I thought, you know what, I do like those. I like white. I like the white socks. I think it's a clean look, and we've got the championship badge on. That's all that matters, really.
How did you feel when you knew you were coming to Forge FC and coming back to Hamilton?
You know what, I remember the moment coming over from Kitchener, coming over Highway 6, and I thought to myself, like, this is the right decision. I remember doing it, and I remember after I met with Bobby and the coaching staff, and I spoke with Kyle Becker at length about it, and saw the passion and how he talked about it. I knew I'd made the right decision. Yeah, there was difficult times. I was getting back into training. I was the older guy trying to be a leader and also get myself fit and play games. But yeah, listen, I've loved it. I definitely made the right decision.
Awesome. Okay, guys. So that's all the time we have. All right. So thank you very much for all the questions, and it's a lot of questions to ask David, but I really appreciate you coming in and doing that. All right. I know Coach Raz will end it, but on behalf of myself and the rest, we thank you very much for your time. You know what I mean? And I believe that, at this time it's a difficult time. You know what I mean? And I think that at the end of the day, as a player, as a coach, and as a pro player, and any pro coach, and everybody's in the same boat, right? And we're all wanting to kind of resume quicker than later. And I think it's important that the positive, the mentality is a big thing. So you coming in today, I really feel that continues, having the boys being in a positive atmosphere, knowing that you're going through exactly what they're going through, and everybody's anxious to get on the field. So I really appreciate that. You know what I mean? And thank you very much for coming. And again, I will definitely see you on the field. So I really appreciate you coming. And again, I'm going to tell you right now, when you're David, the same name as me, that's a special even honor. So,
exactly. No, thank you very much. Well said, and I appreciate you guys having me on. And listen, I meant it. It's my life, and I'll talk about football for hours. So
awesome.
Right. It's a good wrap up there. Again, I don't have much more to say. All I do have to wish you is plenty of luck this season. I mean, there's a lot of talk about things happening, potentially, going into an area and getting the games played even without fans. So, I wish you luck on that happening as well. At your stage of your career now, the last thing you're going to want is a break, right? So, and again, we'll also as an academy look to see if we can't get another event where we can get you some autographs signed. That way, some of my players can see you in person. So
sounds good. I'll try and pop in when we all get resumed and it's all safe to do so. So everyone look after yourself, and we'll be on the field sooner rather than later.
Alrighty. You take care,
guys. David.